For some reason, Billy Napier is expected to be the Florida Gators play caller in 2024. We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Happy Monday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Whole Nine Sports, Giants, Country, NFL 33. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. And yeah, so let's talk about this. Billy Napier is expected to be the play caller for the Florida Gators this season, as he said on a radio show last week. I hate it. I'll just say that I hate it. Again, I don't think his scheme is bad at all. We'll talk more in depth about the scheme later. I don't think his scheme is bad. I think he's not a good play caller. That's what it is. Scripted drives, he's one of the best in college football right now. However, once you get past the scripted stuff, it's just bad football, right? And Florida Gators fans know that. You see the first drive goes pretty well. Even if it doesn't result in a score, the first drive play calling wise goes pretty well. Whether there's a drop or someone doesn't break a tackle that they could have or should have, whatever it may be. Play calling is pretty good first drive. He is supposed to hand off some responsibilities, so maybe that'll help. Maybe. Because again, a big issue last year was that he had so much that he was supposed to be responsible for, which is also his fault, by the way. Like, call it what it is. Yeah, he had so much on his plate. He chose to have that much on his plate. So he is supposed to have some responsibilities taken off his shoulders, and maybe that will help him. However, he hasn't shown to have a genuine feel for calling a game. And I'm not someone who's called a game before. I can't kill him for that too much. However, his job is to call plays and win football games. Well, his job is to win football games and run the team. He's choosing to call plays. My job is to give my honest and informed opinion about it. And so I'm doing my job, which is to essentially criticize that part where he's not doing it well. He gave himself too much responsibility. He bit off more than he could chew. He could have dropped some of those responsibilities at any time. Like, let's also acknowledge that. Like, yes, it's good that he's, taking some responsibilities off his plate now, and that'll make the calling plays part easier. That'll make the running the offense part easier. Absolutely. Deserves credit for that. However, he could have done that after the 2022 season. He could have did that during the 2023 season when things clearly weren't working out. But again, a lot of it was the detailed stuff that wasn't working. That's why I said that Billy Napier needs to hire an offensive coordinator, because it's the stuff that he's supposed to be good at that isn't working. And then he's doing the stuff that he's not supposed to be good at, which is calling plays. And that's not working either. So I will say that I am not going to be the type to talk myself into, oh, Billy Napier can be the guy. Like I've said before, I didn't want Russ Callaway to call plays. However, it would be better than Billy Napier. And I could talk myself into Russ Callaway calling plays and that being successful. Billy Napier, I can't really do that. Just being completely honest here. I can't really talk myself into going, okay, he's suddenly going to be a significantly better play caller for some reason, just because I'm going to have faith. I don't think that's how that works. I will say this as well for the people who want to just go, oh, Billy was never hiring an offensive coordinator. He was always planning on being the play caller. He was always planning on being the guy that runs the offense. He was never going to give that up. That's simply not true. Okay, we've talked about it on this show. Other shows have talked about it, I'm sure. I'm not going to pretend that I watch them, but I'm sure they have. People have written about it where Billy Napier genuinely at least interviewed multiple offensive coordinator candidates. There are some of those coordinator candidates who I'm not going to name names on them. But there were some candidates where Billy Napier spoke to them, or we'll say spoke to, not interviewed. We'll say spoke to, where he spoke to them and ultimately decided that he did not think they were ready for calling plays in the SEC, which is ironic. Just saying. It's a little bit ironic that Billy Napier thinks other people aren't ready to call plays at the SEC level, considering, yeah. We'll just leave that one there for you. But yeah, so there were multiple people that Billy Napier felt were not ready for SEC play calling. I was also told that there were a few names that he took big swings at, like swinging low and swinging hard. Like he was going dead center field. Like that's what he was actually. He's going to left field. He's trying to hit it over the green monster at Fenway Park. Like that's how much he was. That's how hard he was swinging for it. Those didn't work out. So whether it was because he didn't feel some candidates were ready, or whether it was because some candidates either didn't want to come to Gainesville, didn't want to go to a coaching staff that public perception is that they're going to be on the way out if they don't have a strong year this year, whatever it may be. Maybe he felt like he wouldn't be able to run his offense, whoever it was, whatever it may be. Fact remains that Billy Napier did try to bring in an offensive coordinator, or at least entertained the idea and put in a little bit of work for it, but ultimately it didn't work out and it didn't happen. And now we can go, oh, respect to Billy Napier for falling on the sword. However, now is the time where it's like, well, we've kind of seen this song and dance and we don't think it's going to work, but you're going to run it back. And to be fair, I do truly believe that there's still a possibility that Russ Callaway is handed play calling duties when it's all said and done. Hoping he is. Because again, like I said, I can talk myself into Russ Callaway doing it. I could talk myself into Russ Callaway being in this offense and keeping the offensive system intact. Because again, the offensive system in Gainesville is not a bad system. Billy Napier's system is not a bad system. It's slightly outdated, and he's bad at executing the principles of it properly. That's where I feel like I can give him criticism, because I do believe that I know enough about it to give him that kind of criticism. But I do trust Russ Callaway to kind of bring those together, add a little bit of the air raidy aspect to it in the passing game, and make things happen. I'm not going to be super stoked about it. I would have loved a Willie Corn. Again, I'm a huge fan of Brendan Marion. I don't think it would have worked out. I think that if Brandon Marion was the hire, we would have been looking at it. Just wouldn't be a good mesh for 2024, and we're not sure if they get a 2025 when he can maybe put things together. So I will stand on that, Brandon Marion, and again, massive fan of him, massive fan of the scheme, big innovator of offensive football. Just don't think it would have been a good work with Florida. Charlie Rice Jr., Jake Peetz. I was told that Jake Peetz was not talked to. Jake Peetz is the passing game specialist for the Los Angeles Rams, who was the LSU offensive coordinator in that 2021 season when Tyrion Davis-Price ran for like 200 something against Florida. I would have been a massive fan of that, especially when we talk about the next segment, the changes that I think the scheme could see. Before we talk about that, though, we are going to indeed get a quick word from LinkedIn. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. Whether that's a small business, big corporation, SEC football program. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And it's not just another job board. There's a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. You know how I know that? Because I'm on there. You know how else I know that it's not just a job board? Because last week when I was in Mobile for the Senior Bowl, I had Jameson Vest on this show on Tuesday to talk about Joe Houston being hired as special teams analyst. We set that up through LinkedIn. That is how I reached out to Jameson, just so you know. Hiring's easy when you have that many quality candidates, by the way, and it's so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make the process easier for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And just so you know, the subtext group, they're going to be getting a more in-depth explanation of this with film examples. I just haven't decided if I'm going to do it as a video or written content yet, but they will be getting that hopefully this week. If you want to be a part of that and you want to get that, go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. It's 2 weeks free, $5 a month after that. But we are talking about this Florida Gators offense because with Billy Napier being the guy, I wasted a ton of time, by the way, looking up or really studying Willie Corn's scheme because I was like, all right, do it. So wasted a ton of time doing that. It was fun, but wasted a ton of time. But the Billy Napier offense has quite a few Shanahan and McVay principles. And here's the thing: you look at the NFL. Basically, every team has someone who at some point worked under Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay. That's just what it is now. They are modern football. Okay. Every coach, whether they've worked with Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay or worked with someone who's been on the staff with those two guys, every coach now basically has taken principles here and there. You talk about the wide zone is probably the most talked about thing when we talk about Shanahan, McVay. So it's the wide zone. It's the play action passing and like marrying the run game with the play action pass game. Whether it's the pre-snap motion is a huge benefit. The Rams, I think, had the third most pre-snap motion this year. It was like third, or it was like 70% of their snaps, third most in the NFL. It was wild. Every offense has that now. That's why every defense has ways that they can stop it. And that's why teams are constantly trying to shift. Like you look at what Billy Napier does, that is Shanahan McVay-esque. It's the pre-snap motion. He uses it a different way from them, but the frequency is something that he does that he kind of tries to marry that. Play action passing is the thing that he tries to, again, marry. I don't think he does a good enough job of marrying the run game with play action passing. So there's that. There's the wide zone rushing attack that he tries to bring in. The thing that really he separates himself from is running out of the pistol. Pistol, something Billy Napier does a lot more than most coaches, really. And I get it. It's a way to help have that wide zone style because you kind of get the underneath, the under center run there. So it helps kind of make the offense work. I understand it. And it also gives you a little leeway as a passer to be dropping back, run a play action. You could do all of it still. So I understand Billy Napier loving the pistol. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. I know a lot of people do. I don't. And Billy Napier also is more 12 personnel than them. Shanahan used to do it a lot. McVay was always 11 personnel. We'll talk more about personnel in a bit. But the thing is where the offense needs to kind of grow and adapt. And again, this is where we'll talk more in depth with that subtext group and that subtext piece. Not even Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are as married to the initial principles of that offense as they used to be. Because don't forget, they were on the staff together with the Washington, formerly Redskins, formerly football team, now Commanders. They were on the staff together in like 2012. And that's a lot of those guys. Bobby Slovic, a lot of that offense came together. They are not as married to those principles as they used to be. None of them are, really. All the people from that tree have kind of made their own separate, their seedlings have come off and they've kind of grown there. Like you look at Kyle Shanahan. He plays more with personnel than anything else. What I want Billy Napier to do is go the Sean McVay route. Because Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay kind of like grew up together up the tree and then branched out pretty significantly. And the way that Sean McVay branched out is the way that I think Billy Napier should branch out. Adopt more of a gap run game. Like that's what Sean McVay went from pure wide zone guy to now being the most gap heavy rushing offense in the NFL. A huge difference. And it only took like a year for them to change it. They kind of did it like that. So it's not like there was this massive thing that happened and they went through it. No, they adopted more of the gap scheme, and part of that was because it's easier to run out of shotgun, pistol. You can still run it under center, of course, but wide zone's easier from under center. So in the gap, you can run it from any formation. So I think that Billy Napier, you go that McVay route and you go more gap based, you go power, counter, like stuff that Billy Napier does. And we saw Florida find success with it. That's why I want him to really lean into it at this point. I'm not saying you have to go pure gap, but lean into that. Because when Florida ran power last year, granted, Richie Leonard was the one that was the better guard on power because power is one of the guards pulling across. Richie Leonard was a better guard. He's no longer there. But you look at when they ran counter, they were still pretty damn good at running counter, especially when you look at that GH counter where it was the guard, which the play that I always think of was Vanderbilt. It's Micah Mazuka pulling around and Hayden Hansen pulling around from outside him, and they kind of just created a big gap. I think it was for Trayon Webb, and then you saw it against Tennessee, and you saw it a lot, but you didn't see it consistently a lot. Like there would be some games where they brought it out and then they went away from it. But like that rushing attack, that rushing style is working again. And in modern football, it's coming back because they go through these waves of like, oh, zone blocking is what we care about. Option game is what we care about. Gap game is what we care about. The gap run style is coming back. And Florida, Billy Napier, has shown that he has gap game in his game plan. Like he has gap scheme in his game plan. So I think you go the McVay route. You go, hey, we're going to adopt more gap scheme in our rushing attack, and we're just going to spam the ball to our top receivers. Because that's really that's what McVay does with the Rams. You look at them going, all right, I don't care how we're getting the ball in the hands of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. We're getting the ball in their hands. I think that Billy Napier, you only have Eugene Wilson to do that right now. If this was 2023 and you had Ricky and Eugene Wilson, you could really do it. But right now you just have Eugene Wilson and you're looking for the next option. You find that and you just spam them the ball. Just spam them the ball. That's it. It's like, oh, put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. That's how you do it. It's very easy to do it that way. Gap game, make it easier for your running backs too. I know that personally, I prefer zone blocking offense, but it is easier to run gap for your running backs if you have guys who can just go, all right, well, I'm just going to run through there. If the blockers are there, I'm going to have space. If they're not, I could run through people. Like Montreal can do that. Montreal can be that type. So you let him do that. So I think with Billy Napier, I get it. You're the Shanahan McVey. Like you want to take their principles. You want to dance around with them. That's fine. Everybody does it now. But go more the McVey route. Go the McVey offense that's like, hey, we're going to run a ton of duo. We're going to run trap, power, counter. Like we're just going to hammer it. And when we throw the ball, we're just going to spam our top receivers. We're gonna spam the targets that we want to feed the ball, and just do that. And your offense will significantly improve that way, which is one of the reasons I wanted you to go and get Jake Peetz, because Jake Peetz has been working under McVay. We know Jake Peetz has gap scheme in his offense because LSU ran for 500 yards against Florida or whatever the hell it was in 2021 when Tyrion Davis-Price just kept running long trap the entire game. So stuff like that, like you can do that and you can bring it in and you know it can work and you know that you can make it happen. Personnel wise, we'll talk about that and what Florida can do there. But first, we're going to get a quick word from FanDuel. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. It's any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your team wins. Just $5 bet. Bet LeBron to score 20 points. Go ahead. It's going to be like minus 600, but guess what? It's a winning $5 bet that gets you 150 in bonus bets. Crazy how that works. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams. Personally, I really like betting on Cade Cunningham. Just want to throw that one out there. I'm a big fan of betting Cade Cunningham, including him in my parlays and my little builders. Big fan of it. His 6 assists, usually pretty good. Same with Tyus Jones, actually, with the Washington Wizards. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Remember that FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. And to wrap up today's show, we're talking about the personnel move. My knee just popped so loud. I don't even know if you heard that, but if you did, that was my knee. That's how that happens. Getting old. But the Florida Gators personnel changes and how that can kind of impact what Florida does this year. And for me, I think that when you look at the gap scheme that we just talked about, I think I think Billy Napier does want to run more gap. Just looking at what the line is going to look like, one of the tackle spots is going to be Austin Barber, more likely than not. The other tackle spot is going to be Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, more likely than not. Okay. At guard, we don't know yet. We can assume one is going to be Najee Harris. And at center, we can assume it's Jake Slaughter. So the only thing we're really like, hey, what's it going to be is the other guard spot that's not Najee Harris. I think that line is pretty well equipped to run gap scheme because looking at Brandon Crenshaw Dixon, it's something he did a lot at San Diego State. I do believe that was one of the reasons that Florida went after him so quickly was because he ran a lot of gap game. Whether it was power, obviously he was the puller there, but they ran dart where he was the puller, counter where he was a puller. So when I look at what Brandon Crenshaw Dixon can do, and I say, if you do try Damian George at guard, we know he's pretty sick as a puller. Like, I get it. He was a bad pass blocker, like one of the worst. Easier to do at guard because you get more help. You're left on an island less frequently. So there's that. However, we also know Damian George is genuinely a good pulling lineman. You look at the times that Florida ran GT counter, where it was the guard and the tackle pulling. Pretty good. Dart, pretty good. So we know that Damian George can work as a puller. If he's at guard and you decide to go more gap, more power, Damian George is going to get to move more frequently. And Najee Harris is athletic enough to be used as a puller. We'll see how he really operates as a puller when he gets in that space and how he works as a blocker there. But we know that just pure athleticism wise, Najee Harris can be a puller. I have no doubts about that. Rod Kearney, if you want to move him back to guard, I'd like to see him try that as well. And so I do think that you've got the offensive line now where it actually kind of would benefit you to go more gap scheme. And I think part of that's also that they were not good zone blocking. Jake Slaughter is pretty good. He's pretty light. Or he's pretty light for a center, but he still plays with enough power to function there. You can even run pin pull with him and figure things out there. Personnel wise, Sean McVay likes to joke about 11 and a half personnel. And he does that because of Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Ben Skowronek, and how those receivers work as blockers. Where he's like, yeah, we're going 3 receivers, but really they're athletic enough and good enough as blockers that it's kind of like going 12 personnel. And that makes sense. I joke about 11 and a half personnel with the Florida Gators really going 12 personnel, but Arlis Boardingham is more of a receiver tight end hybrid where you can use him like a receiver. You can also use him like that motion and blocking guy because that's also what Sean McVay does. That's absolutely almost said a word I can't say because it's true. But it is bat beep crazy. To watch like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp go in motion from, let's say, a condensed set, which by the way, all those offenses still do that, but go from a condensed set, go in motion from bunch inside, and then you snap the ball, and he's basically pulling between the center and the guard, and he's leading you there. You can do that with Arlis. That could be your version of it. Hayden inline blocking, and then use Arlis as a blocker, how Sean McVay uses Puka Nacua or Cooper Kupp. And you kind of have your 11 and a half personnel. Then there's the thing that I do want Billy Napier to take from Kyle Shanahan. There's 2 things I want to say, but they're kind of married together. Like I often say that. First off, it is continuing 12 personnel. Sean McVay this year in the San Francisco 49ers, or Kyle Shanahan in the San Francisco 49ers, ran a ton of 21 personnel. So 2 running backs, 1 tight end. 2 receivers. Those receivers being Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, tight end being George Kittle, 1 running back being Christian McCaffrey, 1 running back being Kyle Juszczyk, their fullback. And Kyle Juszczyk is arguably the best fullback in the game. Definitely the most versatile one where he could play fullback. He could play straight up running back. He's done that before. He could play tight end. He could play slot receiver a bit. Obviously, he's not going to be great there, but he can do it. Use Arliss like that. Go 12 personnel. Because when you go 21 personnel, and Kyle Shanahan said this multiple times, when you go 21 personnel, you kind of force the defense when they see Kyle Juszczyk in the formation, or in the huddle, they go, oh, we need to bring in a heavier bodies because we think they're going to run the ball. And then you throw the ball and you have a little fun. You use motion, you put guys out everywhere, and you just have fun with it there. And that's what you can do with Arliss Boardingham. You put Arliss and you use him as a blocker fairly often. Put Arliss there, have Hayden there, and they're going to look at that and they're going to go, oh, damn, there's 2 tight ends. There's a decent chance they're going to run this ball. Let's bring in another linebacker. And when you get that going, like you get the run game working, marry that with the play action, you can make it happen easily. And that's what Kyle Shanahan does, using personnel as his weapon, using personnel as his misleading weapon, and also getting to empty backfields without really getting to empty backfields. And this is the part where I'm going to go all Charlie Day, Always Sunny, conspiracy theory stuff. Put Trey Wilson in the backfield more. Not saying use him like Deebo Samuel, because Deebo's insanely built for a receiver. He's a wide back, really. But put Trey Wilson in the backfield. Whether you're motioning him into the backfield or out of the backfield or in then out or out then in, whatever it is, take that from Kyle Shanahan, because what he does is he has Christian McCaffrey and he puts him in the backfield and motions him just straight out to the side. Like he just goes, all right, Brock Purdy's here. Christian McCaffrey's on his right. Christian McCaffrey just motions directly to the right. He's not going up to the slot receiver. He's not going out to wide receiver. He's just going directly to the right, and he's still 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. But then he's got a little bit of a move, and he can cut up field. He can cut up and then in, up and then out, and he can do a whole bunch. Use Trey Wilson like that. Just put him in spots where you're putting defenders in hell and try to make your offense easier. There's ways to make this offense work pretty easily with not even significant changes. Gap scheme is not a significant change. Keep going 12 personnel is not even a change. It's just using Arliss as more of a puller and then block, or as more of a motion and then block. Stuff like that. And you can change that stuff. And you've already used Trey Wilson in the backfield before. It's just doing it more. And you're not getting crazy with your adjustments. You're just getting more modern. Because again, the principles of Billy Napier's offense work fine. It's just that even the guys who installed those principles are making adjustments now because so many defenses are making adjustments. So now that's how coaching works. We're doing this. Okay, great. Defense, counteract it with that. Okay, we're going to counteract that with this and make those changes. But I'm just saying it's not as hard as it needs to be. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country NFL 33, and I'll see you all tomorrow.